Okay, JPH 0917 back with you here. It's been 4 months since we were filming. When we were in Bondsville. It was in January, right before all the big snows hit. So here it is, mid-April, 4 months later, and now we're past Bondsville. We're into Belchertown. We're in South Belchertown, and we're looking towards Bondsville Station here on this right-of-way on Shea Avenue in South Belchertown. And this is where the Mass Central came in. There's a little bend in the track over there. So the track, it's not completely straight, but this is where the Mass Central first crossing was in Belchertown, right here at Shea Road. And we are looking southbound towards Bondsville. Okay, this is Shea Avenue. Now we're looking north, further into Belchertown. When the Central Mass was split into 2 branches, this was part of the Wheelwright branch. And it remained active until the early 1980s. And then that was it. So here's the right-of-way here at Shea Avenue in Belchertown, and there are still ties in the ground. You know, you can't see them very well, but they're there. So this is Shea Avenue in Belchertown on the Central Mass. Okay, we're here at Route 181 in South Belchertown, where the Central Mass used to cross the highway here. As you can see on the pavement there, where it patched over the tracks. And looking further to the north here, towards Canal Junction, that's where Mass Central would come off the Central Vermont after they got trackage rights on the Central Vermont in the early 1930s and then abandoned their parallel line. But as we can just zoom right in there and see. And right away, it's still perfectly preserved, and hopefully they will be putting a bike path in here pretty soon, or a recreational trail. And if I just turn here, there's the right-of-way looking back towards Shea Row where we were, and you see John over there doing his filming for his documentary on the Central Mass. So this is the Route 181 crossing in South Belchertown. As you see, the right-of-way is really nice, perfectly preserved, and there are signs here saying no trespass, well, no motor vehicles, so they only want foot traffic. So, but as you can see, when it does rain a little bit, it does get a little muddy. So now we're going to go on to Canal Junction, where the fatal error was made on October 2nd, 1972, between the B&M and the Central Vermont. So stay tuned. Okay, we're here at Canal Junction, here in South Belchertown. As you see, some rail left over from the old days when the Boston and Maine Central Mass came and connected with the Central Vermont. Here's the Central Vermont Railroad right here. And there was a little guard shack just a little bit beyond here. And this is where the fatal mistake was made by the Boston and Maine crew on October 2nd, 1972, when they were given orders to stay here until the Central Vermont Extra went by, and they assumed it already went by and continued on down their way down that track towards Belchertown. And they didn't even put 2 and 2 together at Belchertown when they saw that the cars they were supposed to pick up weren't there. That should have been the hint for them that the Central Vermont had not been by. So, and then it led to the fatal crash at Hamilton Street, which was coming up a little bit later. But this is where Canal Junction was on the Central Mass met the Central Vermont. And right over there, as you can see in that path, that was where the track came, the Boston and Maine track came in to meet the Central Vermont. And we'll go and look at the original right-of-way before they abandoned it in the early 1930s in favor of trackage rights on the Central Vermont. So this is Canal Junction, South Belchertown. Okay, this is the abandoned right-of-way of the Central Mass, where they rerouted their main line to junction again with the Central Vermont right there. And so the track would have came up there and met the Central Mass right there, and this was probably a little walkway that went to the guard shack, so they could drive to the guard shack, which was probably right over there where we see that rock. So, and right over here is where the original railroad tracks for the Central Mass were when they originally put their line in. And again, they ran parallel very closely with the Central Vermont until the early 1930s. I believe it was 1931 that the Central Mass abandoned their trackage from this point all the way to Norwottuck Junction in South Amherst and used trackage rights on the Central Vermont. So as we come down here and see, here is the original right-of-way of the Central Mass, and it went right down there. We'll take a better look at it. Okay, this is a better look at the original Central Mass right-of-way before they acquired trackage rights on the Central Vermont. So the tracks would have came right around the corner here. I'm standing right on the roadbed, abandoned right-of-way, and the tracks would have gone right there. That's South Washington Street, and judging, it looks like the tracks probably would have gone over on a bridge, and of course the embankment and the abutments have been taken down, so the path now leads down to the street, and then you cross the street and go back up on the right-of-way. So, and this is South Washington Street and Canal Junction. Now let's go take a look at what's on the other side. Okay, now we're on the other side of South Washington Street, where the original right-of-way for the Central Mass came across. I believe it was a bridge, and the abutments are long gone. So, and there again is the railroad tracks for the Central Mass. Hello, John. And as we see, the right-of-way continues right down here in a continuing to parallel the Central Vermont. And this is the reason why in the early 30s, when the Depression hit, the Boston and Maine got into an agreement with the Central Vermont to run the Central Mass on its track, and they abandoned this part of the Central Mass. So this was abandoned between 1931 and 1933, but the rails were not taken up until 1941. So this was the first part of the Central Mass to be abandoned, was the Belchertown stretch. So we're looking towards Belchertown, and our next stop, I believe, is Belchertown Station. Okay, I apologize. I said the next stop was Belchertown Station. It's not. It's here at Old Springfield Road. And as you can see, the right-of-way for the Central Mass right here comes up to cross Old Springfield Road. So there was a double crossing here up until the till 1941 when the tracks were taken up. Because as you can see right there, there is the New England Central and its crossing. But right there was where the Central Mass crossed. And we're going to be at spots in Belchertown where you can still see the right-of-way running next to the Central Vermont. So we probably won't stop at every single one, but we will stop at the strategic ones. So here we are on Old Springfield Road. Okay, we're here at the approximate location of the Belchertown station as we see the right-of-way for the Central Mass coming in out of the woods right there. And it would have gone straight under a bridge right here. Of course, the bridge has been redesigned and everything. So where the Central Mass track would have gone under is all filled in. And so we're at Route 202. And as you can see, there's a little railroad crossing here, which was probably for the access road to the station. And now it's just sits here all alone. So, station, not quite sure whether it was on this side of the bridge or on the other side of the bridge. But as you can see, there again is the Central Vermont tracks. And as you can see that there is a small yard here where trains are swapped out. Now this is where the Boston and Maine crew made their second fatal mistake on October 2nd, 1972, because they were supposed to pick up 5 cars from the Central Vermont, and those 5 cars were not here. So instead of saying the Central Vermont hasn't come yet, let's wait on the siding until it passes, they just finished their work, went out on the track, and continued down there. And I think it's about another mile and a half to the crash point, which is Hamilton Street, and we'll be there a little bit later. But this is the approximate location of Belchertown Station. Okay, we're still at Belchertown Station. I believe this is the approximate location of where the building used to stand before they put this little shack in. And there was a water tower here at Belchertown. Not quite sure where it went, where it was. We all know where it went. It got torn down. So we're not quite sure of its exact location. But here's the little shack. It's here now. It doesn't look like it's being used. So the Boston and Maine track would have been on this side of the station and headed off into the woods in that direction, following again the Central Vermont, which was right there. So again, this is Belchertown Station. We're on the other side of the Route 302 bridge, because there it is right over there, as you see John there. So alright, this is Belchertown Station, signing off from here, and we'll meet you at the next crossing. Here we are at Jackson Street here in Belchertown, just off Belchertown Center. And there we see the right-of-way of the Central Mass coming up towards towards Jackson Street. This was a double crossing with the Central Vermont until, again, the B&M got trackage rights on the Central Vermont. And then these tracks were abandoned in the early 30s and taken up in the early 40s. So here we are at Jackson Street, and right over there, over there on the other side of those trees. I don't know if you can see, but there's the Central Vermont, right to the right of the screen. So from here, we're going to go to Hamilton Street and tell you the story about the fatal accident between the Boston and Maine and the Central Vermont on October 2nd, 1972. Okay, here we are at Hamilton Street, and you can see the rise in the ground there as the Central Mass's right-of-way. It crossed over Hamilton Street on a bridge, while as you see the Central Vermont crossed at grade. And there's the right-of-way of the Central Mass right up there, running parallel alongside the Central Vermont. Now this is the location of the accident in 1972, October 2nd, 1972, a head-on crash between the Boston and Maine and the Central Vermont. The Central Vermont was coming from that direction, southbound, towards Belchertown, while the Boston and Maine train was coming from that direction, coming northbound towards Hamilton Street. And no sooner did the B&M train turn the corner there, did the Central Vermont turn the corner there, these crossings were activated, and they knew they were in trouble. And their impact point is just behind where John is standing, somewhere in behind John there. So the impact was right there, and 3 men were killed, 2 from the Central Vermont and 1 from the Boston and Maine. The 2 who were killed from the Central Vermont, they didn't find their bodies till the following morning because they were underneath the B&M engine, and everyone thought that they had escaped and was searching for them all night until they found the bodies. And the one from the B&M, his leg got stuck under the wreckage. Doctor came along and had to amputate the leg right there, and then the guy died on the way to the hospital. So that we already showed you where the accident in 1932 was in Rutland, and this was the other fatal accident because the Boston and Maine crew assumed that the Central Vermont had gone by, and they assumed wrongly. So, but this is Hamilton Street, and this is where the Central Mass right-of-way went over on a bridge, and the Central Vermont went over at grade. And this is also where the fatal accident took place in 1972, October 2nd. Okay, and onward we go towards Amherst. Okay, we're here at the southern crossing of Federal Street, first of 2 that the Central Vermont has. And just a little further up the road there is where the old Central Mass crossed over Federal Street. We believe it was a bridge, even though we don't see any evidence of an overpass or anything. But, you know, this street could have been lowered or raised up, you know, over the years. But over there across the tracks is the right-of-way. You see through the trees. And if you look right over there, right down there, unmistakably a buffer for a bridge, and this is where the Central Mass crossed over the Central Vermont. And of course these tracks were abandoned in the 1930s, so that bridge would have been taken out sometime in the 30s, and the tracks were taken up in the early 40s. So here at Federal Street, this is where the Central Vermont and the Central Mass crossed each other. And right there's the Central Vermont, and it's crossing with Federal Street. So moving on to the next crossing. Okay, we're here at the southern crossing of Federal Street, and just like on the northern, the Central Mass crossed on a bridge and the Central Vermont crossed at grade. But here they're a little further apart than they were up at the northern crossing. As we see here, the tracks were coming at us from there. We're looking back towards the first crossing of Federal Street, looking back towards Belchertown. And over there somewhere is the Central Vermont, and as you can see, the bridge abutment's been totally taken out, and that the track went across and continued on over there. Now this was the approximate location of Pansy Park. I think Pansy Park was just a little, just a little recreational area where the people of Belchertown probably came and had picnics and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it was like an amusement park or anything like that. We believe it was right across the street there, right where this little stream is. I don't know if you can see it in the picture. Yes, I'm sure you can. So this is the second crossing of Federal Street and the approximate location of the Pansy Park station. And we're just going to look around here see if we can find any artifacts.
Found one.
John just found something.
It's a little piece of metal.
Yeah, this is what you see when you go railroad archaeology. Or as we rail fans say, just looking at the old abandoned roads. So, okay, we're off to the next crossing. We're at Warren Wright Road here in Belchertown. This is the last crossing in Belchertown before you cross into Amherst. And this was the right-of-way of the old Central Mass. And there you can see the railroad track for Central Vermont. And here we find another lonely milepost. Unfortunately, the markings are gone from it. So, and right over there, behind John, if I zoom in a little closer, is the Warren Wright Road crossing and the beginning of the Norwottuck Rail Trail. So from here to Northampton, the right-of-way is a bike path. So, we're going to be going to the South Amherst Station, which was also called the Norwottuck Station, and to Norwottuck Junction. And we will catch you there.